So, as a dad, one of my biggest roles in life seems to be to fix things for kids. And here we have a little girl's pretend spatula. And it's been sitting on my workbench for a while and it's broken. And I have a welder here, I'm a MIG welder, but it's way too thin. So I realized that I didn't have any choice whatsoever, fulfilling my role as a good dad, than to go out and acquire for myself a spot welder, because that's going to allow me to do this repair perfectly. And you don't want to disappoint a little girl. So I'm sure that every workshop person out there can agree with me that a spot welder is something that's necessary in a situation like this. And so let's take a look, see what this baby's all about. In the interests of power and effectiveness, got this 220 volt spot welder with some spare tips. Now, a spot welder has these two pincers, and they come together, and it's for welding sheet metal. So you put the sheet metal in there, you close the pincers, you hit the button, and a current goes through, and it heats the metal, and it welds it. So especially for welding sheet metal, which I actually have struggled with before, because very thin sheet metal isn't something that's easy to weld with a regular welder. So, now, if I'm right, I don't think this tool comes with a plug end on the cord. The reason is because there are so many different kinds of 220 volt outlets. Let's see what they've got here. Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm going to have to get my own plug end. I'll just get the same kind of end that I use for my welder. Put it on here, just a welder plug outlet. But, oh, they gave me a couple of spare tips too. The tips wear out eventually. Good to have some spares on hand. It's got to be 20 pounds or so. Yeah, so there we go. Okay, I'm going to have to adjust this so that they line up. But yeah, I'll get it going, and I'll show you next time how this thing works and whether it in fact helps me fulfill my responsibilities as a dad. So it's been a few days, and I've got a cord end on here, a welder cord. I had to use a little bit of a garden hose here, split and put on to fill up the extra space. And I just plug it into this welder extension cord I have, because I'm not always wanting to weld within reach of that plug outlet. So this is all set now. So I guess I'll start with an admission. This is that spatula, and it's one piece now, but I kind of botched it. I'm not sure that it's really going to work. I should have done some practice. I put the thing in here, and I didn't realize how powerful it was going to be. I just hit the button, a second or so, and I blew the end right off, blew the flattened end right off one side of the handle, and I punched a hole through the body of the spatula. So I don't know if I'm doing too hot here in my role as a repairing dad. I've tried to fix it up as best I can. It's kind of rough here. We're going to have to smooth that off, or someone's going to come to me with a boo-boo and looking for a Band-Aid. But this unit does work really well, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. So the tips, you saw those separate before, and these arms were out of whack. They were kind of out of line. And but now they're aligned, and I have the tips in. Right in the instructions it says to use some special conductive grease when you're threading these tips in, so you get a good electrical connection. You don't want it to lose any voltage across that. So they didn't send any, but I happen to have some. It's kind of interesting. It's grease that conducts electricity. I use this on battery terminals and all kinds of things. Regular grease cannot be relied upon to conduct electricity, but this stuff does. And it's also really high temperature too, so if you want to put a little grease on the bearing points where disc brake pads are suspended in the caliper, this is the stuff to use. Dielectric grease, they call it. Let me show you how we weld this. So two pieces of metal here, and you just basically put them together. The last time I had my hands on a spot welder like this was in high school. It was a stationary model we had, and we made all kinds of toolboxes and ugly planters for our mothers and things like that. What mother doesn't want a sheet metal planter, right? I mean, that's kind of the ultimate expression of love. So, but over the years, I've wished I had a spot welder on numerous occasions. So here we go. We'll give it a try. So you basically just put it in here, close this down. It's fairly snug, and then you hit the button. Just give it a little shot. And like I said, it's a pretty powerful unit, so you don't want to burn all the way through. So here we go. Whoop! Yikes. So, it's welded. It's one spot, and I'd probably want to do some more, but that's how it works. I haven't had enough experience with this thing to know, but I suspect, let's try another spot weld, and I suspect that a little bit of this dielectric grease on the tip will help it to give a better connection and maybe help it to stop sticking too. So let's try this. Watch yourself there, Robert. Okay, ignition sequence, blast off. Whoa. I'm not sure that spark is... It doesn't always happen. But it's good and powerful. You know, if you were assembling something out of metal and you wanted to make it even stronger and maybe waterproof, you could solder this joint now. But that's the way it works. I've discovered something too. This is pure copper sheet. I've often wanted to make things out of sheet copper. I've now found a good source for it. And of course, this would be soldered together. Copper solders like a dream. But I wondered, you know, can you spot weld copper? Because, you know, that's handy, you know, just to hold something together before you get the soldering stuff out. So, okay, now it got pretty hot the last time. Yeah, the whole thing gets pretty hot. It's quite a different kettle of fish than spot welding steel, but it's actually together, which surprised and pleased me because, like I said, when you're fabricating something out of copper, it's really nice to get it all together quickly like this, and then you go over and solder it when it's all done. Another nice thing about that approach is if soldering one side of the joint gets a previously soldered joint too hot, and it causes the solder to melt, unintentionally, then it's still going to hold together because of that spot weld. While I'm on the topic of sheet metal, you might want to see this little bending brake. In addition to wanting a sheet metal or a spot welder for a long time, I've often wanted to bend small pieces of metal reliably because back in the old high school shop we had a really nice bending brake. I can't remember how much this cost. It wasn't very much. It was way under $100, maybe under $50. And it's kind of primitive. It's not very long, but here's how it works. You just tilt this up, and of course it's going to bend the metal. The trick is holding the metal down properly and fully while it's being bent. So the way it works is they give you this piece of metal here. It's not square edged, it's beveled, and that's so you can bend it to a bend that's smaller than, a little smaller than 90 degrees if you want. So you line up the edge of this piece of metal with the hinge point, the swivel point. We have to do some clamping. This unit comes from the factory. It's supposed to be used like this, but they tell you have to clamp that piece of metal down, so they don't supply the clamps, but that's okay. Anyone with a desire to bend metal probably owns some clamps. Let's see how that bends now, shall we? So, here we go. Why am I getting the urge to make my mother a metal flower pot? I don't know. So there you go. Well, thank you for watching. You could do me a favor if you'd give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Subscribe, and when you do, if you hit the notifications bell, then you'll automatically get notified when new videos come out. They come out at least once a week. And be sure to check out my website. It's in the description box, and you can sign up for my great Saturday morning newsletter. About 30,000 people get it every week, and they keep telling me they like it. Thanks again.